We will move on to the next presentation, and I invite Mauro Belardi, also from Italy. Hi, Mauro.
Hi, hello everybody. I share my screen.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry. Okay. Is okay?
Yes, all right.
Okay, thank you very much. Hello everybody, I'm Mauro Belardi. I am a conservation biologist, working since 20 years in the field of large carnivore conservation, even if I try in my work to stay at the border between social and biological science, so everything. So my personal experience is completely fitting with the previous discussion. I try to present to you one project we made some years ago, but it's still very important. I will show you why. My project is about this remote areas project and regards the future of brown bear in Lombardia region. I mean, out of the core area of Trentino, but an alternative title could be also how to deal with the wilderness topic in a region with 422 people per square kilometers. So this is the point. Here, the human concept, the zooming from Europe to our project areas, you can see that the human density is 17 people per square kilometers in Finland, 100 in Austria, more or less, about 200 in Italy, and in our project area in Lombardia, where Milano is 422. So it seems not the best situation for wilderness, even if, like Christine said before, even if the brown bear doesn't need a real wilderness area with no humans and untouched area, but of course you can imagine that this is really a big human density. So despite of this human density, we can say that Italy hosts a lot of iconic species for wilderness. A quite good population of brown bear divided in Alps and Apennines, a very good wolf population, a small population of lynx, and golden jackal is expanding, and so on. Other iconic species very often related with wilderness, like otter, wildcat, and so on. And even in Lombardia, we have a lot of these species. Our project in Pils was aimed to define the criteria and for setting up a potential map for the future reproduction of brown bear out of the core area of Trentino. Christine said as before that in the Alps there is just one small core area in Trentino, because out of Trentino there are some young males but no reproduction. The alpine core area is absolutely small. And so the point is, what about the future of the species out of Trentino? We made this project in 2015, but now this topic is still very important because of social acceptance. So this is our starting point. First, we noted that 70% of the young males dispersal from Trentino normally go in the west direction, even if the closer core area is eastern Slovenia, where there are females, but normally they go west first because they don't know. Of course, the bears cannot see the map from like us, and the second is because east to the core area there are a lot of significant barriers, not impossible to overcome by bears, but of course not easy. There's the Adige River, the highway, the railway, and some steep mountains. The existing of these barriers is the motivation, because 20 years ago the Trentino province decided to reintroduce the bear, because the idea was that it would be impossible otherwise to have a spontaneous colonization from Slovenia, because these several barriers east to Trentino. The second observation is that a lot of, not a lot, some young bears arrived also very west, including Swiss Ticino Canton, Piemonte, less than 60 kilometers from Milano city, and close to also to the border with France. But sooner or later, the young males tend to come back to the core area in Trentino. In Lombardia, that is also the region where I live, we have more or less 5 animals per years. Normally, almost normally they are males, just very few female. But we can say that the bear is regular in Lombardia, and we had minimum 8 cases of hibernation in last 15 years. But we had very few incursion from females. This is absolutely normal from a biological point of view. After 20 years of their introduction is absolutely normal, but from a social point of view, as we will see, it's becoming a problem. This is the barrier. This is the Trentino. This is the Brennero Highway. There is the Adige River, the railway, and a lot of steep mountains here. And this is more or less the core area located in southwestern of Trentino. So why the project is still urgent today? Because we have at the moment about 100 bears in Trentino. So 100 bears in a very small area. And probably they are too many, not from a biological point of view, of course, but from a social point of view. We had recently 5 incidents in last 5 years, incident with humans. And these incidents are showing that probably a so small and very touristic region cannot support alone for a long time the whole alpine population. Most of the cases of attack were about females with the cubs. Just the last one has been a very strange case of a young male. Very strange, difficult to imagine what happened. About tourism, you have to know that Trentino is one of the most important touristic areas in the world. And to be honest, I say this because you talk about, other speakers talk about the importance of tourism on brown bear, using tourism for increasing the image of bear. Yes, bear is important for tourism, but to be completely honest with you guys, I think that Trentino would be a very important touristic destination with or without bear. So the tourism cannot be our main tool for improving the acceptance. What we need is to have new areas suitable for bears, for reproduction of bears, out of Trentino, also for improving the social acceptance inside the Trentino, inside the original core area, where at the moment the social acceptance is very low and decreasing. This is the situation. This picture is above the shoulder of the last victim of the attack. And the level of the acceptance is really problematic at the moment, very low. And there is a polarization between different positions from animal rights associations and people living in the mountains. Nothing completely new, the same of other parts in the world, but the situation is very hard. We know from the experience and from the literature that the acceptance is not directly linked with the number of bears, but of course there is a sort of correlation between the number of attacks and the number of existing bears, especially because the area is very small. So this is a scheme of the situation. This is southwestern Trentino, where there is the core area, and this is what we would have in the future. Maybe the same number of bears or a little bit more, but distributed in all the Alps and not only in Trentino. Probably this will happen spontaneously in the future. Just a question of time, just a problem of time. But the question is if we have time for waiting from a natural expansion, or if we can do something for accelerating this output. This was our original plan for our project. So we wanted to establish a common GIS map for a possible reproducing areas in Lombardia based on scientific knowledge, to validate the map through an expert-based consultation, and then to present the result, the map, to the Lombardia region, to the decision makers, to the Viso platform, and so on. But here, what we found in the field, we realized that most of the criteria were not mapped with the minimum quality. We found very few GIS data collected in a not comparable way among different regions and provinces. And of course, as we expected, the criteria regarding conflicts and disturbance are not easy to map. So we spent several times in order to decide if to try with this or to change the plan. And then we decided to change the plan. And here, our new project structure, we decided to list first some important criteria decided by a pool of very few experts of bear reproduction in the Alps. Then, based on these criteria, we asked to some very local expert in the field and expert of the local habitat in each province of Lombardia. And thanks to them, we created a list of areas and a map of these potential remote areas for bear reproduction. Then we made a validation through a field trip. And then we decided first to present the results to the WF Large Carnivore team. So WF was the donor of the project. And then to decide in a second moment if and when to involve the decision makers. Here, a list of the expert consultation for the criteria. A lot of these guys were worked on the very first reintroduction project 20 years ago in Trentino. So they are really probably the best expert of bear we have in the Alps. And me and my colleague, we made the coordination of this panel. It's been also for us a very interesting exercise because we are bear expert and it's not easy to act as a neutral mediators if you are an expert, but it's been very, very interesting for us. And here the list of the constraints that our expert provided to us. First, they started with to say to us that, okay, but there are a lot of problems and constraints you have to take in consideration. The first is, as we said, that the criteria about disturbance and conflict are difficult to map. The second is that GIS data are sometimes poor and not comparable. One problem we had is that 99% of information about the reproduction in the Alps comes from Trentino. So there is a possible bias, a possible autocorrelation of data. We took the Trentino as an example, but we had very few information about the historical reproduction sites out of Trentino, just some general historical map. And especially, we had very few information about what happened in the past out of the calcareous, the limestone areas. So in Western Alps, there are the area are not calcareous, so we have no caves or few caves. So what about the hibernation sites in this area? We have very few information about this, coming especially from a not European situation, because most of the recent reproduction of bear in Europe regards calcareous areas, so Balkans, Pyrenees, and so on. Here, a moment of the meeting, we asked to our expert if they see possible bear reproduction in Lombardia in next future. They said basically yes, luckily. But they underlined that the situation of Trentino population is not safe. The trend is good, but it's not safe, and that the social acceptance is decreasing. The cooperation among different regions and countries is very low, despite of several live projects. And the experts said also that in Lombardia there are suitable areas, but not everywhere. And when we asked when, they answered that the minimum timing for the first bear reproduction in Lombardia is 10 years. Here a summary, sorry, a little bit boring, but I go fast, about the criteria they provided to us. The first about localization, the areas must be exposed to the south or southeast, normally not higher than 1,600 meters. About the hibernation sites, caves, or in case of no caves, a good forest structure is needed. About food, it's very important that a pregnant female that explore a potential reproduction areas will find a great quantity of food, especially in autumn during the hypertrophic period of the species. So not far from the area, you should have rich food like berries, fruit, chestnut, and so on. And about the disturbance during the hypertrophic period in autumn, hunting seems to be the most problem, and during the hibernation and in spring, snowmobiles and the winter sports. About protected areas, it seems not to be a specific link with the bear reproduction and the existence of protected areas or Natura 2000 areas. Of course, there is a connectivity problem. The remote areas should be connected and not isolated. They can be also small, but they need corridors. But of course, corridors can be also suboptimal habitats. And about the conflicts, what the experts said is that a conflictual area, even if the conflict is not due to the bear mainly, is not good for bear reproduction. Bears don't like a conflict in general. And about the presence of people is especially the exploration of remote areas in autumn that must be peaceful. Too many people can disturb the bear in this period. Also people pro-bear, of course, observers, curious people, photographers, and so on. We talked a little bit about the specific problem of dogs. Then we discussed some specific questions, three mainly. One is if the geographical names related to the bear can be a possible sign of past reproduction of the bear, like not life as I thought, but like the bear pass, for example. And the experts say that no, because usually these names are not reliable, and they are connected just with the legends or with the simply presence of bears, but it means males, females, simple passages or damages, not with reproduction. We discussed about the landslides because we had the discussion about the problem if the landslides can be positive or negative, probably both. Landslides are a danger for bears, adult and cubs, but can be positive because in spring they are a very important source of dead ungulates. But of course, they are one of the most critical problems for the mortality of cubs. And the third point was if the current hibernation sites present in Lombardia can be good candidates for the future reproducing site. And in general, experts say that yes, but of course the needs of a pregnant female and a young male during winter can be also very different. So we provided a list of remote areas, 84 remote areas in the very first list. Thanks to a lot of local people involved, especially people working for provinces. And until now, we made a validation through a field inspection just for 1/3 of the area. And after this validation, we made also border redefinition. Now we have a form for each area, providing information about the general situation, the disturbance, the human presence, and the activities, the road presence, the accessibility, the forest quality, the presence of caves, the food availability in the area and in the surrounding, the future project planned, and we made some photos, of course. We made this field trip from August to November. Here, the map, the results, the map are in red. If you're not familiar with the area, this is Lombardia, east is Trentino, north is Switzerland, here is Ticino, and Milano is more or less here. This is Como Lake, and this is Garda Lake. So a lot of small, sometimes very small areas, but in a general quite natural situation, because the Alps are have a general quality of habitat not bad. So one question is if these small areas are wilderness, are wild area. Probably no, under the classic wilderness definition, but some criteria are close to it. Maybe they are not golden areas or silver or bronze. Maybe, I don't know, maybe tin. I don't know, but they are a sort of wild areas we have to take in consideration if we want to make conservation in this so human dense area. The point is, if this scheme, small remote areas plus ecological corridors, should be a good alternative to classic wilderness in the areas with very high human density, or at least for some species. Here are some pictures up a typical hibernation site in a cave in a calcareous area, and then in case of no caves, so you should have a good forest structure. Here is an hibernation site we have in Lombardia, in Bergamo province, not far from Milano. You can see a village, not so small village, and also a sheep enclosure here. So not a classic wilderness, but this is the situation we have. And here a bear made a hibernation at least for 3 winters. And this was Seriana Valley. This is the Brembana Valley, so the valley immediately on the side of the previous. And here is a photo trap. The photo trap is just 200 meters from a permanent village, but here is brown bear, here is wolf, is it golden jackal. So it seems incredible, but you can have this iconic species also in a very human dense area. Here are the 2 pictures of 2 sites in Lecco province. I put this picture because the Lecco province is very, very close to Milano. Close to one of the most densely inhabited area in the world. So what we should do in the future, we'd like to complete the field validation. We'd like to include Swiss Ticino. Swiss Ticino was in the very, very original idea, but we decided to focus on Lombardia because of budget. Or also Veneto region could be another important area for the future of the bear. We'd like to have a similar analysis in the future. We have a problem to how to overcome the data availability and quality problem. We have to decide when and if to involve institutions, and the answer is not banal, because when you involve an institution, you start with the political process, and of course we have the problem of fundraising as always. Here just for say thanks to all the experts that provide to us information. And here is this is the game that I normally do when I talk with people physically, not like today, physically with people about bear. The game is to find the bear, because the bear sometimes forget to read our articles or our presentation about suitable areas, and simply they go where they want. This is also because these iconic species are so amazing and charming and interesting, because they are completely unpredictable. Anyway, the bear is here. We are in Lombardia. We are completely exposed to north. We are 3,400 meters of altitude, so completely out of everything I say to you during this presentation. Thank you.
most likely. Thank you very much, Mauro. There was actually a question posted by Dennis or Denise. Do bears always build their own hibernating caves, or do they also use already existing caves that are built by others?
Until now, just in caves. But the problem is that we just have a very, very small area of Trentino as example, because, you know, you have Alps, you have Trentino, just southwest of Trentino is the core area with female, and the area where we have the specific reproducing site is very, very small, 2 or 3 valleys for the moment. But for the moment are basically caves. But in the literature, you can find a lot of other cases like existing caves or a lot of other situations. But the problem is that if you go west from Trentino, you find very few areas with caves.
Thanks for that answer, Mauro. I hope it's answered your question, Denise. I've got a question myself. I'm just wondering whether there's potential for bears to repopulate the Apennine area in Italy. I know there's currently a small group in the Abruzzo National Park. I'm just wondering if there's any potential for the population in the Alps and the population in the Apennines to ever meet.
Nice. Oh, this is a tricky point because normally people tend, also talking with journalists, to say that in Apennines the situation is, especially with bear, more or less okay. So coexistence, national parks, and so on. And you know that in the Alps at the moment the situation is absolutely not good in terms of coexistence. But if you talk about the Abruzzo, the Apennine population, you had in the last 15 or 20 years at least 40 bear poached. So the point is that there are simply 2 different ways for show the conflict. In Trentino, you start if you are against bear, you start with a public discussion. You talk with journalists, you make petitions, and so on. In the Apennines, the solution is normally poaching. So we have a lot of different situations, but for the moment we can absolutely say that from a biological point of view, the future of the alpine population is better than the one of the Marsicano bear.
Okay, thanks for that, Mauro. I see we have one more question on the Q&A section from Isaac. So just it's why don't the female bears distribute as much as the male bears?
Sorry, why don't the female bears? Okay, well, this is typical of the biology of the species. Normally, the bears start immediately to disperse out of the core area, while the females normally tend to stay all together and to move with a different timing. This is very normal. The point is that if the question is if the biological timing is enough, looking to the social situation. That's because we should try to make something for us accelerating this dispersion also of the females.
Great, thank you very much for that talk, Mauro. It's very interesting. It's nice to discover a bit more about bears in the Trentino region and in Lombardy as well.